صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ واجفة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة أئذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم بالساهرة هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالواد المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم فإذا جاءت الطامة الكبرى يوم يتذكر الإنسان ما سعى وبرزت الجحيم لمن يرى فأما من طغى وآثر الحياة الدنيا فإن الجحيم هي المأوى وأما من خاف مقام ربه ونهى النفس عن الهوى فإن الجنة هي المأوى يسألونك عن الساعة أيان مرساها فيم أنت من ذكراها إلى ربك منتهاها إنما أنت منذر من يخشاها كأنهم يوم يرونها لم يلبثوا إلا عشية أو ضحاها صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
أحسنت. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to our Thursday night program as we continue with our majalis for this blessed month of Muharram to commemorate the tragedies of Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah to accept our amal and your amal. Tonight's program is, or before we go for tonight's program, we want to do a couple announcements. Just a reminder, tomorrow there is a youth majlis that starts at 7 p.m. for all the youth age 5 plus. They can come here, do Quran, speeches, latmiyas, nohas, all this stuff. And we have, after that, the night of Aza for brothers only that starts at 9 p.m. To remember the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and also do latmiyas and speeches and Quran as well. Tonight we have a guest speaker, Sheikh Abdulrahman Cherri. Sheikh Abdulrahman is a very well-known speaker and lecturer in our community. He has a bachelor's degree in liberal arts with a focus in economics from the University of Michigan. He traveled to Qom and began studying in the Hawza since 2015, and his Hawza studies are still continuing. He's also a PhD candidate at the University of Munster in Germany in the Department of Islamic Theology. Please help me welcome Samahat Sheikh with a loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Respected brothers and sisters, Ahsantum, thank you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your amal, your deeds, your commemoration of the tragedy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam during these blessed and sacred nights of Muharram and Safar. One of the things that we take from this tragedy, this event that has occurred over 1,000 years ago, a person might ask, what is the benefit of remembering and commemorating an event that had occurred over 1,000 years ago? Remembering it every single year, commemorating it, holding sessions like this, spending time and energy, money, and efforts in holding events and repeating things that are related to that event. Isn't it somewhat repetitive that every year we do this? Don't we have anything better to do? Isn't this something we've already heard over and over and over again? One of the answers which we can give to that is that the nature of humankind does not change most of the time. The humans that existed over 1,000 years ago exhibit very similar behaviors to humans who exist nowadays. It's almost the same pattern. We have a saying where we say that history repeats itself, right? Events happen over and over again. And they seem to be repetitive patterns. Humans, compared to other creatures on this earth, seem to exhibit behaviors that are very destructive to themselves and to others for some reason. Now, religion was revealed in order to present solutions to this internal issue that human beings have. And one of these ideas that religion comes up with or brings forth to the people is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created different types of creatures. One of the categories of those creatures is the animals. The animals don't have an intellect. They act merely from their instinct or their desire. And for those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the revelations, we believe, because we were told this, that there are also angels that were created. And the angels were created purely with intellect. They were not created with any type of passion or desire. And then comes the human being. The human being was endowed with both of these. In one aspect, we are animals. We have desires, we have passions, we have instincts. And on the other hand, we were endowed with an intellect too. So part of us is angelic in this way, but the other part is animalistic. Now sometimes when you put these two things together, it becomes either more destructive than an animal or more spiritual or pure than an angel when these two things are together. And our ahadith indicate this. A human being, if he or she was to obey their passions and instincts, then they would lower themselves beneath the animals. The Quran describes those who go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and don't listen to Him and transgress against Him as people who are even more lower than animals. Why? Because the intellect allows the person to make right decisions. But here we also have another issue. This intellect which a person should use to make right decisions could also be used to do wrong decisions. That same mind that is able to create something that's beneficial to humanity is the same mind that is able to destroy humanity as well. You can invent a very beneficial thing. You can make a device that would improve people's lives. And at the same time, you can invent an atomic bomb. You can invent weapons that are destructive to humanity. You're able to use this intellect to advance sciences in people's lives, to discover the stars and the skies, to be able to advance medicine, to advance things that are related to engineering as well. Why? To make the humans' lives easier. At the same time, with that same intellect, you're able to invent something like a gun or like a bomb, or even something that destroys the nature that we have on this earth. So this same tool that we have been endowed with can go both ways. It can either assist us as human beings if used in the right way, or it can destroy us if it was used in the wrong way. And this is something that repeats itself over and over and over again in history. Most of humanity tends to choose the animalistic side. We go towards power, we go towards wealth, we go towards things that inflate our ego. And once the ego becomes inflated, you don't see anyone else worthy of anything anymore. You start to fill up the whole room yourself. You only see yourself. You don't see yourself as making mistakes anymore. You think you're the one who deserves to rule the earth. You're the one who deserves all the credit. You're the one who deserves all the goodness in this life. And once you start having this mentality and this attitude, you start destroying those who are around you. We look at, nations that have existed. For example, the Ottomans, when they ruled, towards the end, there were 4 brothers, and each brother had a certain segment of the Ottoman Empire. But because of the greed that each one had, they began killing each other. A brother began to kill the other brother, and the other ones too. Why? Because he wanted the whole empire for himself. He didn't want to share it. And the Ottoman Empire, as you know, it was a very expansive empire. It was very big. If this was divided between the brothers and the cousins and the uncles and the aunts, everybody will still have tens of thousands of acres of land that they can govern. But once your ego is inflated, there's no limit to what you want. If the whole world is given to you, you would say, I want even more than that. And to get that, you're ready to destroy even your own family members, even your own siblings, for a matter of expanding your land, or expanding your wealth, or expanding your power and authority. And all of these are just imaginations that we have in our mind. No matter how wealthy we become, no matter what we own, in reality, we don't have true ownership over those things. We don't really own what we think we own. Ownership is an idea that humans have invented in their minds. We've all agreed with each other that, if somebody buys something with this currency that we've invented, then this belongs to that person. But in reality, we're just borrowing things. We're just agreeing between each other. There's nothing really that's ours, because the moment that we die, everything goes away. So it's just a deception, an illusion that we're living in. However, this illusion is so real in our minds that we treat it as if it's reality and not just an illusion. Fame is the same thing. It's an illusion. The more famous you become, the more important you think you are. You want to become a celebrity, you want to become an influencer, you want to become this, you want to become that, you want to become known. But this is just an illusion. These are ideas that are in our minds, and the moment we leave this world, all of this goes away. It doesn't have any intrinsic value. The only value that remains in the Quran brought these pointers to wake us up from this. That happiness lies in this internal balance of the self. Not by being known by other people, not by owning things. That's not what gives you value in your life. What gives you value is if you have that internal balance and internal faith inside of you. If you have that, nobody can take it away from you. If you own 1,000 palaces, the kingdom next to you, or the country next to you, the government next to you can decide the next day to come and occupy your palaces and take them away from you. That shows us that it's not true ownership, right? If something can be taken from me, then it's not an intrinsic part of me. So what is it that I can have that cannot be taken away from me? It's that internal spiritual state that I have. Nobody can take it away. If I decide to be happy and content with my life, no matter what I have, nobody can come inside of me. They put you and take you to the hospital, they open you up, and they look for your happiness to take it away. They can't do that. They might try from the outside to whisper to you, to play around with your mind. They don't want you to live a happy life. They start saying things to put you down. But you can choose to listen to that or not. This is why even the shaitan on the day of judgment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he begins to be asked, why did you do this? Why did you make the people do these bad things? The shaitan says, I never made them do it. They decided to do it. I just, whispered around. I was messing with their minds, but they made the decision. So that value of what I have inside of me, nobody can take it away. There's nothing that is able to take happiness away from me if I'm a happy person. I can decide that for myself. And if I have that emotion or I have that spiritual state of joy and content in my life, then no one is able to take it away. This is mine. This is who I am, and this is my true ownership. Everything outside isn't really what I own and isn't really what gives me value in life. I can own gardens and palaces and cars and clothes and everything, but I can still live in a very sad state and a very despair state, right? And we all witness this. So this is a struggle that we humans have. We go after things that are not really ours, things that are not really valuable. We give that the essential value. We seek happiness and joy and value in life in that which cannot really give us value. And we let go of things that are truly what gives us value. This is what happened in the tragedy of Karbala too, right? It happens these days, and it happened 1,300 years ago as well. A lot of the people that were in the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, they were there for the money. They were promised lands by Umar ibn Sa'd. They were promised wealth. They were promised Status. Some people were told they were going to be given governmental positions if they fought. Some people were promised to be given lands. If you go fight Al-Hussein alayhi salam, you have this much land. If you go fight the Imam, you have this much money, you have this much gold given to you. It's the same thing that's happening nowadays. In wars, in other areas, people are chasing those things. So commemorating these events is commemorating the human tragedy, which the epitome of it was in Karbala. Because you had not a regular person who was being fought. You had an individual who represented the pure, spiritual, and perfect representation of humanity. This person who, if you were close to him, you were the wealthiest of individuals on earth. Isn't the Imam in one saying, he tells the people that "Man lahiqa bina faqad adraka al-fath." Whoever comes with us reaches that state of fath where his spirit, his soul, his heart is open and it reaches that level of perfection. And whoever leaves us and abandons us, then he has lost everything. So that struggle that the Imam had, it was the struggle, the human struggle, between that perfection which we should seek, and the Imam represented the most highest form after the Prophet, of course, because he was the grandson of the Prophet, and the Prophet had expressed his perfection by saying that Hussein is from me and I am from Hussein. The Prophet clearly indicated that inside this man is that prophetic perfection. Not just is he from me, but I am also from him. So there we have this representation, and on the other hand, we have those representatives of the pure evil. And that struggle continues and continues and continues until the Day of Judgment. So commemorating these events is not something which we should tell ourselves that we shouldn't be doing, or it's repetitive. Why do we keep talking about this? It's because we keep doing the same thing over and over again as human beings. We go through the same struggles, the same problems. Every time we have a new generation that's born, these humans are not made up of a different nature or different substance than the humans that came before them. They carry the same qualities, they carry the same characteristics. Yes, the outside world might change. You might have cars now that didn't exist back then. Now you have sky-high buildings that didn't exist back then. You have technology that didn't exist back then. That changes. But the nature of us doesn't change. So remembering these events is to create that awakeness inside of us, to remind us that even I, as an individual, who claims to be belonging to this religion of Islam, belonging to this pure Imam, I come and commemorate. Even me, I have the potential of becoming corrupted and destroyed. This is what we have to keep in our minds. It's a reminder for us. Those people that were in the tent of Umar ibn Sa'd, don't think they didn't know who Al-Hussein was. It wasn't too long after the Prophet's demise. There were people that lived at that time that were companions of the Prophet. And they heard the hadiths from the Prophet. Everybody knew who Imam Hussein was. Everybody knew what kind of individual he was. Everybody knew that he was the master of the youth of paradise. And if they didn't know, the Imam on the day of Karbala reminded them of these things. He told them, he spoke to them. He said, amongst you are people, if you don't know, they can tell you that they heard the Prophet say this about me and my brother, that we are the masters of the youth of paradise. Because sometimes we act like we forget, right? Oh, I've never heard that. I've never, we lie to ourselves. We deceive ourselves. Why? Because we don't want to take ourselves accountable. We don't want to make that change because change is difficult in our lives, right? But if you continue like that, you end up destroying yourself. So the Imam reminded these individuals that you are fighting against me and I represent this. Don't you have a change of heart? The majority of the people, hardly any, there were some people that changed from one side to the other. Al-Hur, for example, is one individual that left the evil camp and went to the good camp. He had a conscience. He was able to say that I choose my good life and the afterlife over the evilness and the temporary life. He made that decision. It was the last moments before the battle. which kind of gives us hope as well, right? This resonates in ourselves. Sometimes you think to yourself that, I'm too immersed in bad things in my life. I'm already drowning, right? أنا الغريق فما خوفي من البلل. In one of the poems in Arabic, a person says that I'm already drowning. So why should I fear becoming wet? I'm drowning already. I might as well continue drowning, right? Becoming wet isn't something I'm worried about anymore. But that mentality is wrong. Even at the last moments, you can always change your life. It's always in your hands. Nowadays we have a lot of research that's coming out that's trying to tell us that humans don't have free will. That everything we do, all our emotions, are driven by things that we are programmed by. So we have certain cells, we have certain, genetics that we are, that we have inherited, certain environmental factors. These dictate to us every single thing that we do. Why do you get mad? Well, there's a genetic disposition, right? I'm born this way. Some people are born and have the potential to become murderers. They're not murderers by choice. Some people are born and they have the potential of becoming dictators. This is not a matter of choice. This is some research that's coming. They're trying to push this idea right now that we don't really have the choice in our hands. But the Islamic conception is no, this is not right. At the end of the day, you might be influenced by genetics. You might be influenced by environmental factors. Yes, they do influence you. We don't say that there's no type of influence. The way you were raised by your parents influences you. I speak to individuals and, we all live this reality because we have parents in our lives, right? They say that I see that myself behaving in a certain way, let's say with my spouse or with my children, because that's how my parents were behaving at home. There is that type of influence, yes. And Islam has not denied that. That's why it emphasizes that if we behave in the house with our spouses, with our children, we should keep in mind that their future is affected by the way we behave with them. That's why we have to perfect our behavior with them. You might insult your child and think, nothing's going to happen to this kid. But in reality, that insult might remain in their mind until the end of their life. Every word you say to a child, you have to be very careful how you say it. Everything you say to them, because it affects their life. Islamically, we accept this. There are influences. But at the end of the day, whatever the human being does is coming from the willpower. You decide as a human being. You make that final move and final decision. That will, which they call al-irada, is something that is in our hands. Before making a decision, I might be influenced. I might go outside and I see a lot of billboards on the street and they're telling me to go buy a new phone, right? I remember when I was living in Iran and studying there, all because of the sanctions and whatnot, you don't have these advertisements for Samsung and, Apple and all these other phone companies. So you get to the airport and you don't see phone advertisements. You see buy some yogurt or buy some, whatever they make over there that they like a lot. I know must is yogurt in Farsi. They love yogurt with salt and na'na sometimes, mint. You find that kind of stuff. Now, naturally, I don't like to drink that, so it never affected me. As much as you can put 1,000 billboards, I'm not buying that yogurt. I don't like it. So it doesn't influence me. But I realized by living there, if I stay there for a year, I came back, as soon as I got here, T-Mobile advertisement. I'm like, oh my God, I need a new phone. I completely forgot I don't need a new phone, right? My phone was completely fine. But as soon as I saw that billboard message, it popped in my mind, oh, maybe my phone's old. Let me check it out. Let me see. I need more RAM. I need more, more a better camera, a few more megapixels. So that influence is there. But deciding to buy a phone, that's what I can decide. Yes, sometimes the influences are very difficult to fight off. And that's what, that's why Islam tells us to live in a certain environment to protect ourselves from certain influences. Because the more influences there are, the more likely we're going to decide based on that influence. The more media I have, and this is, this is why they have billboards, right? This is why they have advertisements on TV. Now this is why they advertise on YouTube. You know, you think it's a 20-second video or a 5-second, you know, advertisement. It's not going to do anything to you. But if it wasn't so effective, you know, who would put a 5-second or 10-second advertisement? You would think it's stupid, right? 10 seconds, you want to convince me in 10 seconds to buy this? Well, if it didn't work, they wouldn't be doing it. There's a lot of research that shows that this 5-second, if it comes repetitively, is going to eventually influence most individuals to do that thing. And that's why you should try to protect yourself from these influences. So there are influences that happen. We are influenced by our environment. We are influenced by our culture. We are influenced by a lot of these things. But we have to protect ourselves, first of all. If I feel like I'm someone who's being dragged into a bad position in my life, I have to look, what is it that's pushing me towards that? Is it my friends that I'm hanging out with? The friends that I have. This is why there's an emphasis that if you are to hang out with someone, then choose the right people to hang out with. Why? Because your friends influence you. Your friends could turn your life into a very destructive life. They could push you towards doing drugs, push you towards, you know, buying a fast car and start doing donuts in the street. You know, because that's a cool thing to do. Your friends can influence you to do that. They can influence you to do many evil things. So how do you protect yourself from that? You remove the influencers. And, you know, it's ironic that the people online now, they're called influencers, right? They're influencing us. What are they influencing us with? Well, this idea of turning us into commodities is basically what it is. It's turning us into these individuals who just want to open up accounts and become famous and become influencers. You ask a person, you know, what's your job? He says, I'm an influencer. Or you ask her and she says, I'm an influencer. What are you influencing? Are you telling people to become, you know, better individuals? Are you teaching humanity how to improve itself? Most of the time, no. You do things that go towards those passions and desires that humans have, because that's the easiest thing that you can have, you know, get a like for or get a share, is basically playing around with emotions and feelings and desires. So most of these influencers are not good influencers. Some of them might have a good intention. They might try to advise, they might try to do good things. But the majority, no. So the fact that it's called an influencer should make us think that, you know, maybe there's something I have to be careful about over here. I don't want to be influenced by the bad thing. So these individuals that lived in Imam Hussein alayhi salam's time were also influenced as well. There was a lot of propaganda that was used by the Umayyads against the Imam. A lot of propaganda and a lot of luring using wealth, like nowadays. You know, you get advertisements about how to become a rich person or how to make $1 million in 2 months, or, you know, you get those really like ridiculous advertisements. Like, if you can make $2 million in a month or $1 million in a month, I mean, everybody would be a millionaire, you know. But a lot of people, they get dragged by that. They click on the link, right? That's the bait there. They click on it. They might not believe it, but they say, you know, maybe there's a 1% chance. I don't want to miss out on it. So they click on the link, and then they'll figure out that, you know, they're getting dragged into something that's not even realistic. So this is what was used back then too. Wealth, because humans love money, they love wealth, the accumulation of wealth. Power and fame, and so on and so forth. So using these events to awaken us from these problems is something that we allow, or is why we commemorate these every single day. Because the battle of Karbala, the tragedy of Karbala, is the human tragedy. It's the tragedy that we are experiencing nowadays on a personal level, on a social level, and on a political level. It awakens us. If a whole year passes without being reminded of this evil that can occur in the world and within ourselves, then we might be dragged into that evil camp. And the objective of these majalis is to awaken us from this, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ability to be awakened through these majalis and not come here and not be affected by them. We ask Him to grant us purity in our hearts and allow us to realize the true objective and the true value in our lives. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
Santum Shaykhna. Just a reminder that we doing Salat Jama'ah right after this, and inshallah we'll do Dua Kumail as well. So if you want to stay with us.